what I learned that I would say paid a lot of dividends for me throughout, I guess, the short career that I've had so far. No one's going to do the work for you, thing where they expect to get like the secret sauce from somebody, and it doesn't exist.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast from unknown to unforgettable. We got Tracy here in the house, ready to take on. I'm super excited. We're talking a little bit about just entrepreneurial journeys and kind of what we've done in the past. So welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me, dude. It's already been good. You guys missed out. It wasn't being recorded.
Dude, we should just take off right now. The value's already been given. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, take over the world.
Bro, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Kind of like what got you into insurance, dude, because obviously you've done a lot of stuff. But tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are today. Some of the stuff you kind of went through along the way too.
So it's a kind of a long-winded story. So I'll try to make it not so long. But in a nutshell, I grew up in a little town called Sheboygan, Michigan. If you know anybody from Sheboygan, or I'm sorry, if you know anybody from Michigan, this is how we tell people where we're from in Michigan, right? So Michigan's shaped like a mitten, and you just kind of point to where you're from. So it's backwards. So I'm from up here. Okay, so literally almost to the freaking Canada. So grew up there. Was an awful student. I probably failed every math class imaginable, probably failed almost every English class imaginable, almost didn't pass high school. I was a little rugrat, man. Got a little trouble with the law when I was younger too. Just didn't know where my life was going to go. And I ended up barely graduating and getting into a university on probation. So I went to Fair State University and I studied criminal justice. So I was there for 4 years. Technically, it was 5 years. Got my degree, 4-year degree, Bachelor of Science, and studied criminal justice and went through the police academy. At the time, they had one of the longest and hardest police academies probably in the country. It was grueling. Ended up getting through that and became an MCOL certified police officer. Decided that wasn't the route I wanted to go. Just kind of weird timing with kind of what was going on in the police world, I guess, and decided I just wasn't for me, man. Just wanted something different. And so I landed on an insurance gig because my mom always told me that I was pretty charismatic and she thought I'd be good at sales. So I was like, yeah, I'll give sales a whirl. And I landed, I applied for Bankers Life. If anybody in the insurance world knows captive company Bankers Life, big company, did some, trained me in a very short period of time, pretty good, I think. And then I just hit the road, was one of their top rookie agents for the 8 months that I was there. Did really well, which, by the way, to be one of the top rookie agents, you got to, if you write 50 grand your first year, you're just like on the top of the world,
bro.
So I did like 50 grand in my first 8 months, and was like, I'm making so much money, which to some people that's a lot of money, and that's great.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2017. So 2017 September I got licensed. So what are we? So I'm coming up on 5 years being licensed. Actually, it was, what was it? September. I don't actually remember, man, but it was sometime in September, late September.
Okay.
I think it was around my mom's birthday, and hers birthday, September 17th. So, so worked for them for 8 months. And then I wrote some IULs. For those of you who don't know, it's an Index Universal Life Policy. I wrote some IULs for a family of 6. So husband, wife, 4 kids. And I found out
how much premium was that? That was probably a stupid amount.
No, it wasn't, because it was a small premium IUL.
Oh, okay.
They were cheap. They were cheap. I think my total commission overall on all of it was like $180 or something. Like that's
Bro.
It. Yeah. And it took me like 6 hours to do those applications. They were like one of my first IULs. And I ended up finding that Bankers had these child IULs for children, which were basically better structured and lower premium. And I was like, and there was lower comp. And I was like, dang, dude, but I got to do the right thing. So I went back and I rewrote the kids, another couple hours worth of work. And they asked me like, why'd you come back and we would have never known. You're only saving us a couple bucks. And I was like, because it's the right thing to do. And they said, well, you should talk to our cousin. He's in like the financial world. He's looking for somebody to work with him. If you're ever interested, you should talk to him. And I was like, I'm doing pretty good, but I'm good. And I ended up calling the guy and reaching out to him, and he was a financial advisor and he was looking for a partner. And it was at that time I was kind of looking to leave banker's life and do my own thing. So I ended up leaving, partnering with him. We worked together for about a year and a half. Unfortunately, had a bad falling out, but during that time, I learned annuities pretty well. So I focused on life and Medicare, and then really focused on Medicare for most of it, and then started writing annuities when I was under him briefly. But I didn't actually start writing annuities full time until about a year and 2 months, a year and a month, a year and 2 months ago was my full time, stopped doing everything else and just started annuities. So when I left him, technically I got fired kind of. He wanted me to go my separate way. I didn't want to get securities license. I didn't want to do
financial services.
Yeah, I didn't want to do the money management side. And he wanted me to, so I took the test, failed. I was going to take it again in 3 weeks, and we both sat down, had a come to Jesus moment. And he's like, "You don't want to do this, do you?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, just keep doing what you're doing because you're doing great." And I was doing awesome. I was building up Medicare book for him. He was making an override on it. I didn't really cost him anything. He's like, "All right, just do that." And then a couple weeks later, he was like, "No, you're fired." So I was like, "Oh, that's okay. That's interesting." And by the way, that was right in the middle of like AEP. It was November of 2019. So for those of you who do Medicare, that's like prime time, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm going to sink or swim. So I bought my book of business from him. It was about $40,000. So I started 40 grand in the hole, borrowed 20 grand from my dad, and then started in 2020, January, actually technically December 2019, January 2020, I started doing telesales because COVID hit. I did a mailer. It was perfectly timed, and I got like 6% returns on my mailer.
Wow, dude.
Yep. It was
on
really
Medicare?
good. On Medicare.
On
Medicare.
Dude, what the?
Yeah.
That's
so I got,
insane.
I know. People tell me this day, like, that's nuts. That's such good timing because everybody stayed home, right? Because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I just like mailed at the perfect time. I sent out like 20,000 mailers, and then over the next few months sent out like another 15,000. And I wrote like 500 Medicare apps that year under my own pen, plus life and a couple other things. I wrote a ton, all virtually, just sending out policies and doing everything in my office. I ended up replacing my wife's income, and she stopped working. I obviously paid off all my debt. It was awesome. And then it was the next year my son was born, and I took a big chunk of time off. And then I decided that I wanted to start annuities because I just, over the time, I really started to like them. And I started realizing I kind of know a lot about them because David, the guy I was working with, did. And then the people at Bankers Life did. And I was like, man, I think I could do this. And let's just say it's been a good ride. So, yeah. So
yeah, I mean,
we're full focus
obviously,
now.
like, it's funny because it's like actually so crazy that we're actually talking now, because I remember when I was trying to figure out, like, when I just got into the insurance industry, I stumbled on a couple of your podcasts with Cody. And like, I just literally remember you're like, yeah, I have 42 like agents across the country. I'm like, that's insane. Like, I was like, dude, there's no way that I could ever like get like even talk to him really or things like that. And it's just crazy how we like got introduced on a warm contact. Shout out to Sandra. And then, so that's cool. But dude, so like, what's like some stuff that you've learned kind of along the way? Because you obviously didn't have a perfect path, and honestly, like, that's okay. But what are some things that you learned, like, that you would pass on to your younger self when you're starting out? Because like, dude, there's a lot of the stuff that you learned going from a police officer to like, I feel like in insurance, you don't know what you don't know. So like, I talked to somebody yesterday from State Farm, and he's like, dude, I'm happy with 15% comp. And I'm like, bro, like, you just don't know. Like, it could go up to 160, like, so high. And then he's like, no way. I'm like, yeah. So like, what are some things that you learned along the way that you're like, okay, like, just from experience that you learned?
I would say what I learned that I would say paid a lot of dividends for me throughout, I guess, the short career that I've had so far is no one's going to do the work for you, and it just takes just go and find out how to do it. So like, I think the problem that a lot of people face is that they expect somebody to hand them something, or they expect to get like the secret sauce from somebody, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You got to go and you got to work at it, and you got to find it, you got to figure it out. And I think if I could put a skill that I have, it's just I have an ability to figure stuff out, because I don't take no for an answer. So I think that really helped me with like, Medicare stuff, when I didn't have like a mentor to teach me certain things about Medicare or annuities. Like, I've done so much freaking research on annuities, it would blow away guys who have been doing this for 30 years, because I would not take no for an answer. I would not take subpar for an answer. Working with carriers and asking them about A, B, and C, and they don't give me the information. I'm like, well, I'm going to go freaking find it out and spend, I remember the first time I bought a big database. So like, I'm a big database guy. So I ended up subscribing to this database, and it was like $15,000 to subscribe to it. And I'm like, all right, we're going to do this because I need to know this stuff. I need to be the guy where I know it and no one else does, because they're not going to push as hard as me to get there. And I remember doing it, and it's paid for itself so many times. Like way over, I mean, probably worth 15 million, honestly. Dude, I haven't made that much money, but someday.
Dude, yeah, totally. Well, that's really cool. And I think like that's one of the things, like, it's like nerve-wracking, honestly. Like, I bet you probably felt that, like, dude, putting that much money, that was probably a lot of money at the time, to be like, dude, I'm just gonna do this in knowledge. But what's cool, I think in the entrepreneurial space, what I love is that literally you can talent and skill stack. So with that, like, being able to like buy something, and you'll never know how much return on investment it brings, because that you can build on it as well from another thing, you just keep adding and adding onto it.
100%. I agree.
So I love that. One thing that I'm really curious to know from you personally is, like, I think that you kind of in the insurance world in general, but like more like even entrepreneurs, like, it's easy to get that shiny object syndrome, and you've really stayed in your lane, which is like, I respect and admire a lot. Like, how do you get to that point? Or like, what's your focus on that? Like, being able to like really, because I knew you as the guy that did almost 300K in a month just on annuity stuff, annuity volume. And it's like, I guess, how do you like get to that spot where it's like, dude, yeah, there might be some good stuff, but like, this is the best, or like, this is what I'm going to stay in, ride or die.
Yeah, you definitely don't get to 300,000 commission in 1 month in annuities without staying in your lane and having laser focus, unless you get lucky, which some people do for sure. But I want to throw this out there. I'm human, man. There are definitely times where I have lost focus. I did it very recently. My assistant, she's licensed. And this whole ACA thing, going off with all these special enrollment periods, and I got wind of it, and my agents were starting to do some of it, and I was like, man, we got to do that. So I spent some money and spent some time to get her licensed, and it fell on its face, and I was like, listen, let's stay in our lane. So I am definitely human, but I think what's important is having goals, right? And if you can create very specific goals, I mean, you could have goals for like the morning, you could have goals for the evening, and then the day, and then the week. And everybody talks about goals, right? But there's a lot of importance in that. Like, people aren't just saying it to say it. There's a lot of validity. So when you have a goal and you're not making it too big, but you're not making it too small, and you're making sure that that goal is something that you can meet, or if you don't meet it, work harder to meet it, it kind of tunnel visions you. Tunnel vision has always been seen as like a bad thing sometimes. But it's not it's not in our space, I don't think, right? You're going to have, I get approached all the time from, let's just say, big IMOs that want to get into the annuity space. I mean, you're talking IMOs that bring in 100,000 policies a year or more. Okay. And they want to get into the annuity space, and like, Tracy, how can we automate this? How can we do this? And it's like, you got to, if you really wanted to do what we do and you wanted to cross all your clients or whatever, you need to hire like a lot of people to do that, and then have somebody like me or whoever train those people so that they can do it. Because a lot of people try to shortcut it, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't work out, man. And I always tell people, stay in your lane and hire the people or partner with the people that know what you don't. Because although you may take, a commission hit or whatever to do that, in the long run, you're going to have a great partnership as long as you both stay in your lane, and you're going to end up making passive money from it. That's what we do for a lot of agents. We'll train agents on how to do annuities, but like if